Hello, my name is Joe Fouts. I am a software engineer here at LIDP Consulting, and in this video I will be showing you a live demonstration on how to run our Titanium edition of the administrator with open source options. The open source options I will be using today are for the JEE application server and for the database management system. One of the many goals we did achieve with the Titanium edition of the administrator was to offer small to mid-sized clients the ability to use open source options. Many times these clients did not have the resources for the commercial products such as WebSphere or DB2. Titanium now gives those clients the ability to use open source options. Titanium is a JEE application system. Therefore, it must run on a JEE-supported application server. Currently, there are several JEE application servers available from commercial brands such as IBM WebSphere and Oracle WebLogic to open source such as Glassfish and JBoss. Titanium does require a database management system. Therefore, it must run with a supported database management system vendor. Currently, Titanium is supported with the commercial Oracle database, Microsoft's SQL Server database, and IBM DB2 database. And we also now offer the open source Postgres database. In this demonstration diagram, you can see that I will be using the GEM client interface, the Titanium client listener, and then the open source JBoss JEE application server and the open source Postgres database management system. So with that, let's move on to our live demonstration. So now that I'm on the desktop, before I begin the demonstration, a couple things I wanted to point out was that for this demonstration I wanted to completely disconnect from the LIDP network. So I decided to use one of my old laptops. It's a Sony Vaio, and I quickly wanted to bring up the system information for this laptop. And you can see it's running Windows Vista Home Premium from 2007. It has 4 gigabytes of RAM, but unfortunately it only uses about 3.1 of them due to the operating system limitations. And it has a Centrino Duo CPU running at 1.80 gigahertz. And again, this is by no means a screamer machine. It is pretty much outdated. But like I mentioned, I wanted to make this even more challenging to see if I could get the open source options in Titanium to run on this. One other thing I'd like to mention is that this laptop is totally disconnected from any Wi-Fi or internet or network access. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring up a couple command prompts. The first command prompt is going to be used to start the Titanium client listener. And the second command prompt is going to be used to start the JBoss open source JEE application server. And on that application server, I do have the Titanium edition of the administrator's full deployment jar file installed on it. Before I start the server though, I do want to do one more thing, and that is bring up the Postgres database. And I already have the database up and running, but I just wanted to show you that we do have 876 tables defined within the Postgres database management system for Titanium, and it is defined under the database AppDev 70. So I'll start the JBoss JE application server. So while that starts up, I go over what I have up now. I have the Titanium client listener. I have the JBoss JE application server. We have the Postgres database management system up and running. And now what I'd like to do is bring up the GEM client interface. So what I will do next is sign on to the Titanium edition of the administrator's open source region. And once I successfully log on to that region, I will first do the SIGU transaction to pull up my user sign-on profile. And you can see that the response time is pretty quick. The next thing I'm going to do is retrieve a client record. If I could type the right number. And this retrieves the client information. What I will do now is retrieve an agent record. And there is the agent information. And then finally, what I want to do is now retrieve a contract. And there is the contract information. So even on this old laptop with no power at all, the transactions for the retrieve of the client, agent, and policies seem to be pretty acceptable. So the next thing I'm going to do is to add a new client to the system. I'm not going to enter all the information. I'll just enter the required information. And I think that's enough to enter a new client record. And indeed comes back client 0005 was successfully added. Now retrieve the client. You can see how fast that comes back. The next thing I'm going to do is add a new agent to the system. And again, I'm just going to be entering the basic information so that I could add the agent. And I think that should about do it. Just double check here. Let me add the contract start date. So now I'm going to submit this new agent. And it comes back, agent 00005 was successfully added. I will now retrieve the agent, and you can see the agent information has been added to the open source region. So the last thing I'm going to do is to add a new contract to the open source region. And I'm just going to add an ordinary life participating par ordin policy. I'm going to go ahead and search for the new client that I just added. And it found it. I'm going to take that client. I'm going to go ahead and enter 100 units. Now enter my agent. And I think that should do it. I'm going to submit this new contract application. And it comes back successful with a few informational messages. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this policy. And you can see it come back with the new policy and the policy information. One last thing I would like to show you is if I go back to the Postgres database utility and I go to the FNAC, which is our client AC segment database table, and I view the rows from that table, you can see that the new client 5 that I added in this demonstration is right here. If I go to the TRAC, which is our contract master AC segment database table, let me find that table real quick. TRAC. If I view the rows from that table, you can see that the policy 6 that I added for this demonstration is right here. So that concludes the live demonstration. I hope that I've shown you that Titanium can run with open source options, and in this demonstration with the JEE application server being JBoss and the database management system being Postgres. So in conclusion, I hope that I have clearly demonstrated to you how to use the Titanium edition of the administrator with open source options. Again, in this demonstration, I had used the JBoss open source JEE application server and the Postgres open source database management system. Again, my name is Joe Fouts, and if you have any comments or questions regarding this video, please send me an email to foutjo@lidp.com. And if you'd like to learn more about Titanium, please visit www.lidp.com for more information. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.